Hi. So here we have the number of ways of distributing 15 identical balloons, 6 identical pencils and 3 identical erasers amongst the 3 children such that each child gets at least 4 balloons and 1 pencil is what? Now if you'll have to use the formula of permutation and combination here. The formula for if you have n identical objects to be distributed in R different groups, the number of ways is n plus R minus 1 C R minus 1. So if you remember this, the question becomes very simple. So there are 3 children, right? And we have to distribute balloons, pencils as well as erasers. So let's start with balloons first. Let's say the number of balloons received by the first child is X, by second child is Y and the third child is Z. This total should be equal to 15 balloons. These are all identicals and the groups are all different. Now each child gets at least 4 balloons. So out of 15, what you do is you give 4 balloons to each of these children. So each of these child, so you would have distributed 4 plus 4 plus 4, 12 balloons. So 12 balloons are already given and it does not matter, since all the balloons are same, it does not matter which 4 balloons a child gets. So now you get, or now you are left with only 3 balloons, and these 3 balloons now need to be distributed to these 3 children. So let's say the balloons received by each of these 3 children is X dash, Y dash, Z dash from these 3 balloons. Okay, X dash, Y dash and Z dash, this is equal to 3. Now the number of ways of distributing 3 balloons to each of these 3 children, now there is no restriction, so the number of ways will be n plus R. How many groups are there? 3. So n plus R minus 1 C R minus 1. So this becomes 3 plus 3 6, 6 minus 1 is 5. 5 C2 and 5 C2 is 10 ways. So there are 10 ways of distributing balloons. Next, let's look at, next we have pencils. So let's look at pencils now. So assuming that each child gets X pencils, Y and Z pencil. The first child gets X pencil, the second gets Y pencils and the third gets Z pencil. So this total should be equal to 6 identical pencils. But again we have to give at least 1 pencil to each of these children. So if you give 1 to each of these, each of them receives 1, and apart from that 1, let's say each of them receives X dash, Y dash and Z dash. So the first child receives X dash more than 1 pencil, the second child receives Y dash more than the 1 pencil and the third child receives Z dash more than the 1 pencil that they have already received. This total should be equal to the remaining number of pencils, which is 3, right? So now effectively you have 3 pencils, identical pencils to be distributed in among 3 children. So the number of ways will be n plus R, which is 3 people, minus 1 upon C R minus 1. So this again comes out to be 5 C2 and 5 C2 is again 10 ways. So number of ways of distributing pencils is also 10. And now finally coming to erasers. So erasers, let's say the first child gets X erasers, the second gets Y erasers and the third gets Z erasers. This total should be equal to 3 identical erasers. Now there is no condition on erasers as to each child should get how many. So the number of ways here will be n plus R, which is 3 minus 1 C R minus 1. So this is again 5 C2 and 5 C2 is again 10 ways. Okay. So the number of ways of distributing balloons is 10, for pencils is 10 and for erasers is 10. Now comes the important part. What will be the total number of ways? Now total number of ways will be, basically you have to distribute balloons and pencils and erasers. Since we have an and, the total number of ways will be number of ways of this and into number of ways of this into number of ways of this, which is 1000 ways. If it were OR, then we would have added all these cases, but since it is AND, we multiply them. So the total number of ways is 1000. So the answer to this question is 1000. Thank you.